This is Tom Snyder. I'm the Executive Director of RIoT. Thank you for joining our information session about the RIoT Accelerator Program this evening. Um, First of all, thank you very much for joining online. We're in a bit of a crazy time right now and had to make the difficult decision to move this from an in-person event to a virtual event, but I think we'll still be able to get across all the information that you need. As we're going through this event, what I would like to do is first ask everyone that's joining to mute your microphone if it is not already muted. We are recording the initial part of this webinar so that folks that are not able to join in real time can watch a recording later that we'll post on our website and across social media. So I'm going to ask for the moment for you to let me walk through a few slides and some discussion. If you're not online at the moment, don't worry. We will distribute the slides. They're not critical to being able to understand the information as it's presented. But then once I get through this information, it'll take about 15 minutes or so to go over the nuts and bolts of the program. Then I want to open it to questions, at which point I'll ask people to introduce themselves, ask your question, and I'll do the best I can. I will make one other notice. This session was intended to be led by Rachel Newberry, who is the head of our accelerator programs at RIoT. Rachel, unfortunately, at the last minute was not able to be with us this evening, so I'm going to do my best to represent her. But certainly, for those that reach out separately, if you have questions afterwards, we'll connect you with Rachel and make sure that you are engaged. So with that, the RIoT Accelerator. Oh, let me see if I can advance the slide. There's me and Rachel. Since we're not in person, you can see, I guess, at least what we look like. Excuse me. The accelerator program we've been running for a number of years now. But first, RIoT itself, for those that are not familiar, we're a nonprofit organization that's focused on economic development. Our belief is that jobs are created where technology is evolving and emerging. Um, Old jobs get replaced as technology moves forward, and it creates new jobs. And so, as economic developers, our focus is around helping individuals, entrepreneurs, even established companies with understanding how the technology landscape is changing. And then we run a number of different events and elements and programs that help to create healthy businesses. We've been in operation for 6 years now. We're the largest Internet of Things organization in the United States, maybe in the world. We have not found anyone that is quite like our organization. Be happy to discuss with any of you a little bit more detail around that. But today we're here to talk about the RIoT Accelerator Program, which is primarily funded by about between 80 and 85 corporate partners. We do have some municipal government partners and some university and community college partners as well. But the bulk of the funding for everything that we do comes from the companies that you see here on the screen. We thank them for their support. What they're able to enable is that everything that we're going to talk about this evening is completely free for the community that we support. Early stage startups don't have a lot of money typically, particularly if they're pre-revenue or early in their journey. And one of the real keys to success for any new venture is how long it can continue to sustain, to grow, to optimize before they need to start paying a lot of bills. And so part of our mission is to create free resources that extend the runway for companies that we work with and startups that we support. As an organization, I mentioned we have been in operation for about 6 years as a 501c3. We're part of a larger organization called the Wireless Research Center that we're not going to talk about in this particular session today. But from the RIoT side, we have worked with with frankly hundreds of startups that have raised a lot of investment capital. We often get questions about fundraising, and while we are not investors ourselves, we're well connected in that community. So you can see here a lot of investment capital, a lot of job creation. That's how we measure our success. A lot of company creation and growth. We're currently offering the RIoT Accelerator Program both in Wilson, North Carolina, and in Raleigh, North Carolina. And by the end of this year, we expect to expand and begin to offer this program in other markets. The particular session that we're recruiting right now is a session that will run this summer based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'll get into more detail about that in a moment. So the RIoT Accelerator, we fondly call it RAP, the RIoT Accelerator Program. That's perhaps not a very creative or a clever name, but it works for us. So the RAP is a 12-week program, and in a moment I'll talk about what that 12-week arc looks like in terms of content. But a couple of fundamental things first is that, as I mentioned before, this is a free program. It is a competitive program, so we accept applications, and applications are currently open for our next program. We review applications both internally and with a lot of outside experts, and we narrow down to invite typically between 6 and 10 companies at a time to come through this 12-week program. It is an in-person program, and I'll talk some more about what that means in terms of the commitment that we expect from the companies that we work with. But through the program, we cover a whole range of business and technical topics, and we get a huge number of people involved to help entrepreneurs to build out their professional network. Some of those resources are resources they may need to utilize right away, and others are resources that they may find are useful a little bit further in their journey. Overall, as I mentioned, this is an in-person program, so we do expect at least one founder of the startup company to participate in person from RIoT Labs. RIoT Labs is located in downtown Raleigh. We're actually attached to HQ Raleigh, if there are people in the audience that are familiar with that co-working space. HQ is the largest co-working operator in Raleigh. They have over 100,000 square feet under management and over 300, I think around 330 startup companies that work from their spaces. RIoT and HQ have been partnered for many years, and if you don't know about them, I encourage you to check them out. They're an amazing organization and a great partner. In the program, we understand that each of you have a business to run. So we cannot ask any company to completely dedicate all of their time over 12 weeks to a program like ours that's really project managing and helping to drive as quickly as possible, drive your company forward. But we do expect a real commitment, and it works out to approximately 8 hours per week. What that looks like is workshops that are scheduled from the start. So from the beginning of the 12 weeks, you know exactly what time slot things are happening, kind of like signing up for a course load at a university. You know your schedule for the whole semester, so you can plan your business around when you need to be in the various workshops and seminars and programs and so on, and when you're available to meet with customers and drive your business day to day. But it tends to be 2 to 3 60 to 90-minute workshops per week, and then additional one-on-one mentoring sessions with both the RIoT team and with experts that we will pair your company to work with you throughout the entire program. The first part of our program is highly focused on market validation, looking for problem solution fit and product market fit. Our philosophy is that we want companies to be as market driven as possible. What that means in very simple terms is you want a market pull. You want you want to understand customers' problems and pain points so thoroughly that you can develop solutions that they're coming to you and looking for them. That doesn't mean that you don't need to sell and to prospect and to look for new business, but many companies that we work with have a great idea. Maybe they have a minimum viable product. They've developed something they believe is really cool, but they did not fully validate that there was a need in the market for this. So we really spend a lot of time on validation. I'll talk in a moment about what our sweet spot is in terms of maturity of a company, but even companies that are well established, this validation piece is critically important. It's foundation laying at the start of the program, but this is something that you never stop doing in your business. So after week 4, we do not stop doing validation. We try and set the habit so that that's something that you will consistently do throughout the long life of your business. The middle part of the program is highly focused on both product development, so inward facing within your company. What are the things that you are doing to provide a solution to your customers, whether that's a hardware solution, whether that's a software solution, whether that's some type of service. We work with a whole range of different kinds of companies. But then we put equal measure, or maybe even a little bit more than equal measure, really around business development. Understanding how to take your value proposition and turn that into a business model, how to figure out what's the right pricing, what's the right method for customer engagement, what's the right way to create a sustainable and viable business. We spend a lot of time working through what we call the 4 fundamental business truths, which are: the first, solve a real problem that the market cares about. The second is very simple: make sure your solution costs less than someone will pay for it, so you operate in the black. The third, be able to find customers. There are a lot of fantastic solutions that fail because they don't focus, spend too much time building out the product and not enough time focusing on developing out the customers and the sales pipelines. And then the fourth is simply follow the rules. Make sure that the things that you're doing are proper, that proper regulations are adhered to, that your legal structure of your company, all the things that you need to do that are critically important, but more fundamental kind of business needs are met, so that you're operating in a healthy way that can grow and scale. And speaking of growth, the close of the program is very focused on go-to-market strategy. How do you launch into a market? How do you get your first pilot customers? How do you make sure that those are paid pilots and not volunteer pilots? Customer development, sales pipelining, understanding the cost of customer acquisition. We spend a lot of time in this period around marketing, around branding, storytelling, and this is where we teach first how to sell, but then secondarily how to fundraise. Fundraising is just a type of selling, just to a different kind of customer than who your customer for this specific problem you solve is. Investors are a different kind of customer, a very important partner for many companies, but part of what we focus on is helping companies understand when should they raise investment, should they raise investment at all, and why. And so we're very much focused on revenue first, and companies that do that really well and drive revenue really well find that then fundraising becomes much, much easier. Who are we looking for? We are, first of all, stage agnostic. What I mean by that is we have had great success in the past working with very early stage companies, in some cases even entrepreneurs who have identified a real market opportunity but haven't even incorporated yet. So in some cases we're working with folks that are pre-company, if you will. You can't see me doing air quotes as I'm looking at my computer, but The idea is, in some cases, will work very, very early, even if you just have an idea. What we're not interested in at that end of the spectrum is we're not interested in somebody who has an idea but clearly hasn't done any research, hasn't done any real work yet in validating that idea. So we do expect that folks have done enough work and spoken to enough people that they can really articulate in an application what the idea is and why they really understand, thoroughly understand that there is an opportunity in the market and there is a demand for something that they want to deliver. On the other side of the spectrum, we frequently have corporate innovation teams that are in the program. As an example, we worked recently with a $19 billion privately held company out of Germany that is fundamentally a manufacturer that was working on their first ever software product. They had always made mechanical things throughout their history, but realized that they had an opportunity to develop a product that would be used internally to improve operations and efficiency, but also was something they might be able to sell across the supply chain that they worked in. And that was something that was difficult for them to envision how to run within their culture and within the skill sets that they had in this very traditional company. And so they leveraged a program like ours. So whether you were a well-established existing business or a very early stage idea company, we're looking for your application. I would say the middle of the bell curve in terms of the companies that we've worked with are those that are relatively early but have built some level of prototype of their design, some level of proof of concept. Maybe they've got a couple customers, maybe they don't have any customers yet, but they've at least spoken to a few, and they maybe have some soft commitments to try and pilot or beta test something once a product is available. So growth stage, early stage, established corporation, don't feel like the stage of your company is limiting whether you apply to the program or not. The first bullet on this slide says broad approach to IoT. What I mean by that is the world is always changing as emerging technologies come around. I said at the outset of this session that jobs and companies are created at the edge of technology. We're in this phase that people are calling the fourth industrial revolution that's related to Internet of Things. I believe the term Internet of Things is a transient term that we're not going to use a whole lot longer. But what fundamentally is happening is that all businesses are moving towards leveraging real-time data. When you hear buzzwords like artificial intelligence or machine learning, that is about using real-time data to automate decision making. When you hear about things like blockchain or cybersecurity, that's about real-time protection of information. We have seen the last few decades of our economy driven by information technology, and information technology, whether you run a food truck or a barber shop, or you're running a massive technology company, you are an IT company because you're leveraging electronic payments, you're leveraging websites and email and social media and lots of IT without which you can't do business. This is going to be true with data going forward. If you are not leveraging real-time data in some manner in your business, you will be eclipsed over time by companies that do. So regardless of what kind of company you have, whether you think it's a technology company or not, we are interested to work with you and help you understand where data will intersect your business and how it's going to make you more competitive. So while we get a lot of applications from startups that maybe obviously look like technology companies, whether they're making software, whether they're making hardware, whether they're doing some combination of both. If you're not sure if you're an IoT company, I would encourage you, please still apply. We probably will see some way that technology is going to impact your business. And if you have a great business idea that serves a market, we would love to work with you. All right, there we go. So we want high quality applications. Really what we're looking for is indicators of the things that I've just talked about. Have you identified something that looks like a real problem in a market, something people actually would pay for or businesses would pay for if it was solved? We're extremely interested in working with good founders. That comes across an application as someone who is interested to learn, who listens before they speak. That doesn't mean that we don't like really confident people who are extroverted and great at selling and really believe in what you're doing. But if you have all the answers, you don't need a program like this. We're looking for folks who are going to be welcoming of the help that not just the RIoT team, but all of the mentors and advisors and resources that we bring into this program are willing to give. Just about everyone that supports this program is doing it in a volunteer way. So they're really here to teach. And so we want folks to be in this program that are seeking to learn. We do send all of our applications out to a lot of volunteer reviewers that help us to vet the application. Another good sign of a great application is one that creates really, really thorough understanding of what you're doing in a really concise way. So I encourage you, after you write out the application, reread it, see if you can get the same information across with less words, create less burden on the reviewers. They would much rather read an application that's a few pages than one that's an entire novel. Wherever possible, please share real information as you might measure in data. I talked about the importance of data for all businesses going forward. There's no difference here. If you have a great idea for market opportunity and you have talked to 57 different companies to vet that idea, tell us that. If you just say, I've talked to a lot of companies, that doesn't have the same impact as saying, I've talked to 57 companies. If you're further along and you know that you have a 32% conversion rate, or that you have $1,500 in monthly recurring revenue, whatever the numbers are, if you have numbers, please share them. If you don't have numbers, that's okay, but be clear and articulate, here are the things that we will measure and the things that we do have on our plan. And then finally, if there are other folks that you can mention that we can get additional information from, we're happy to follow up with other people. We are absolutely interested in working with companies that are going to not just work really hard to launch their company, but be willing to be part of a larger community and a larger cohort and able to support and help each other out. We're ecosystem builders ourselves, and we want everyone to be part of that ecosystem. I'll mention a few companies briefly that we've worked with in the past. Campana came through, I think they may have been our first, no, they were probably our second program. They have developed a very interesting use of technology that helps with both supply chain operation and also trust in the pet cremation industry. So here's an example of a company you might not think of as a technology company. This is a company that works with veterinary clinics as well as individual pet owners to manage the end of life process, which is very, very difficult. There was a massive problem in the market where pets were cremated and the wrong ashes would get back to the wrong owners, and other very tragic things that you would never think apparently happen all the time. But then there's also a lot of inefficiencies overall throughout that industry, and they had some ideas about how to improve that process. And Campana now is doubling in revenue and in capacity, probably less than every year now. Probably every 9 months or so, they've been doubling as a company, doing very well. Vital Flow, makes a medical device, a portable spirometer, but really their value is back-end analytics around bringing in weather information, air quality information, lung health information that end users measure from their own home that help them to manage their asthma. They're doing very well. They have gotten lots of non-dilutive funding into the organization, more than 7 figures in funding that essentially is free money to help them to grow into scale, and they're in the process of doing clinical trials and things as they move towards market. Ava Labs came out of NC State. These were students that applied into our program. They make distilling equipment that helps distilleries to produce spirits, alcohol, at a much faster rate than normal. For spirits that need to be barrel aged in traditional processes, which take at least 4 years to happen, Ava has production equipment that they've developed that can shorten that process to a few days or maybe a week. And they're currently selling. They've successfully fundraised and are growing. Trilliot is maybe the most obviously tech company in this list of 4 at least. This is an RFID company that helps to put inventory and assets that are critically important to companies but aren't real high dollar value, to be able to digitize those assets and do management of those assets with extremely low cost platform through RFID and long range readers and a software platform. Think, for example, a company like a Red Hat that has a 20-story downtown tower that's full of rented furniture, and every single piece of that furniture needs to be accounted for when they renew the rental agreement with whatever company that they've rented all their cubicles and their desks and their chairs and conference tables and so on from, to be able to have all of that stuff on the internet to where you can see where it is at any point in time, and kind of manage that things don't get lost even as they get moved around. Those are the kind of things that Trilliot can serve. We spend a lot of time helping our startups to get in front of customers. I mentioned that we are a revenue first organization. We want to help you get customers and drive revenue. When you have a strong revenue story, you can either continue to bootstrap your company, which enables you to continue to have full ownership and control of your organization. That's an ideal scenario. Or if you do want to raise funds to grow rapidly and really use investors to put a boost out, if you have strong revenue, that leads to a much easier way to raise money and stronger leverage in negotiating with investors. So we spend a lot of time getting startups in front of media outlets, in front of customers, on stage at events. Another aspect of what RIoT does is that we are a conference and event producer. We ran over 90 events in 2019. We will see how many happen in 2020 with the current coronavirus situation, although we are doing a lot of digital events. We're running a digital event this Friday, actually, that looks at the intersection of technology and data and global pandemics. And through that event, as an example, we have a number of startups that we're working with now or we've worked with in the past that will be a part of that event. We just launched the registration page for that yesterday. We've got almost 200 people signed up already. So the reason I bring this up is we have this large ecosystem, we have a huge following, and we use that so that you're not only learning things in the accelerator, but then through other parts of our business, you're gaining exposure that leads to customers and leads to talent and other things that you're going to need to attract as your company grows. So I'm not going to go through each of these just in the interest of time, but we will send out all these slides and you can follow these links if you'd like. The current application is open. The application form is fairly simple. It's actually just a Google form that you can download from our website, ncriot.org/wrap. You'll find information about that online. You'll see all the instructions for how to submit the application. Applications have to be in by the close of the day on March the 30th. From there, we will parse the applications out to our reviewers in our network. We'll also review them ourselves. We'll pare down the total applications to probably about 15 or so, plus or minus a few, that we will then reach out and schedule one-on-one interviews. In the current situation, those will probably be virtual interviews, not in-person interviews. But through that interview process, then we will narrow down to between 6 and 10 companies that we accept into our summer program. The program begins the Tuesday after Memorial Day, and it runs through August. I apologize, I don't have the exact date that it closes, but our intention is to have teams notified that they have been accepted into the program at least 3 weeks to 1 month before the program begins, so that there's plenty of time for you to prepare to be able to be, at our facility and in person for the committed time that I spoke about earlier. I think that is the last slide. Yeah. A couple of other just quick comments. As part of this program, I mentioned before that we do not take, we don't charge any fee for the program. We do give free office space for your startup for the 12 weeks of the program and for 12 additional weeks, so a total of 6 months in our RIoT Labs facility in downtown Raleigh. There's no cost for that, and we encourage people to leverage that. We also operate in our space a proof of concept prototyping lab. So if you are a company that's making hardware of some kind, we have the tools and equipment to do that, from software on the front end to help you with things like CAD development or other kinds of software development. That's particularly useful if you're a pure software company just building a software product. We have partnerships through our network with organizations like Microsoft and Oracle and other companies that could provide cloud connectivity and are quite generous in offering a lot of those services for free. We create those introductions to get you those kind of technology tools. We have an entire cabinet full of developer kits of different kinds that are available for companies that are building out product. We have solder stations and 3D printers and laser cutters, electrical test benches. We have all kinds of stuff here for building and prototyping. It's not a production facility, but that's also a free resource that's available. And then, as I mentioned before, we have this massive collection of corporate sponsors that are interested in you driving forward and growing your company. We introduce as many of them as we feel are useful. There is no requirement at all that you do business with any of these sponsors. So this isn't like a veiled way to force you into business agreements that you don't want to be involved in. But these companies are coming in. They're offering a lot of free support, a lot of free resource, advice, mentoring, sometimes physical technology and tools and software licenses, because they understand that startups aren't in a position to pay for those things now. But if they are able to get enough time with free support, eventually as they grow and scale, there's a chance that they may, in the future become a valuable partner and customer.